Hey everyone, we're just going to give everyone a couple minutes just to log on here. I think people are just connecting right now. We'll get started shortly. Okay, well, hi everyone, and welcome to Tech Tuesday. I'm Jessica Goldberg, and I'm thrilled to have you all with us for today's fireside chat, where we're going to be talking about the competitive edge, insights-driven decision making. This series is brought to you by Society 54, and it was inspired in part by the work we're doing with Inform54, our platform built specifically to help legal marketing and business development teams harness technology and data to work smarter, move faster, and stay ahead. We've seen firsthand when teams have access to the right insights that they can elevate their impact and align more strategically with firm priorities. And that's really what Tech Tuesday is all about. Candid conversations with forward-thinking leaders on how technology and data are reshaping the way we work. No slides, no lectures, just real talk with real innovators in our space. And that's why today I am so excited to be joined by somebody who truly lives at the intersection of strategy, innovation, and legal business. Rachel Shields Williams, Director at Sidley Austin and 2025 President-elect of the LMA International Board. Rachel brings nearly 2 decades of experience across BD, marketing, knowledge management, and legal tech, and she's led some seriously impactful initiatives that we can all learn from. She's also stepping into a new role overseeing data and AI at Sidley, which makes today's conversation even more timely. If you have any questions during our conversation today, please feel free to type them into the chat, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can. We'll also be sharing a link to the recording on social media after today's session. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's get started. So with that, Rachel, I think a great place to start would be just to learn a little bit more about this new department that Sidley is creating and your role within that. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's really exciting. The only constant we have in this life is change. And I've been with the firm for 16 years next month, and I've seen the firm evolve a lot from 10 offices to 22 or 23 offices, from 1,100 lawyers to almost 2,400 lawyers today. And I've watched us evolve from a 45-person marketing department to a global integrated department that's led by two amazing chiefs today. In 2018, we created a knowledge management function that was focused on helping our lawyers find the right information at the right time. And now the firm is investing in data and AI as one of the cornerstones for the firm. You can't have AI without a strong data strategy, and data strategies don't happen in silos. It's not owned by marketing or KM or IT or library. Your data strategy really is um, across the whole firm. It's kind of like the fascia of your organization. And so what Sidley did is, about 6 months ago, we brought in a chief data and AI officer, and she took a good look at the firm. And, all of us have data and AI functions in our firm today, and they're happening in little bits and bobs in different places. And our leader saw that, and what she proposed to do, and the firm supported her, is bringing us all together into one function. My team and I oversaw foundation and related data integrations related to clients, matter, and people. Um, and now we formally own that space for the whole firm. So I liaise with marketing, knowledge management, and library as it relates to their data needs for information about clients, our matters, our people, and our events, and making sure that we have a central concept of truth that all systems pull from versus having a little bit over here and a little bit over here and a little bit over here, and everyone's nodding along because you're like, oh my God, all the Excel spreadsheets. So, my goal is to bring Excel to a place where it is appropriately used at the appropriate time versus um, another silo and tracking form.
I think that's something that we could all follow that example of. I love the term that you just used, central systems of truth. And I know before you've spoken a little bit about using data to tell stories and not just metrics. How do you think legal teams can really start using data to tell a more descriptive or compelling story about a client's journey or about firm performance? And do you have any examples of how you guys have applied that?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of starts with just shining a light on the information you have today. Oftentimes, I think, particularly when I was still in the marketing function, I felt like I needed to have all this information to be able to tell a story, that I needed to have the revenue and the hours and, all of these details to tell a really compelling story. But what we as marketers, because at the end of the day, I'm still a marketer. I'll always be a marketer. I'm just a marketer that works in data and technology, but I'm still persuading people. I'm convincing people to invest in me, to change their behavior, to try something new, the same thing that every other marketer is trying to do on behalf of their employers. I'm just doing it internally. Um, and you don't really need all of the information. You need to have a couple pieces. You need to understand what pieces are compelling for you and your firm and the story that you want to tell. A great example of this is like a client's growth. You know, you can't control whether or not the lawyers open the appropriate matters at the appropriate time. So you can't say like, oh, they opened more matters. But perhaps you could use your ERM to say, hey, we're actually emailing with more people at the firm and we're interacting with more people at a higher frequency. So yeah, I can't make a lawyer go to conflicts and open the new matter like they're supposed to. They might bill to the same matter that's older than me. But what I can do is like look at other pieces of information and focus on what I can control to tell the story that I see happening. Because essentially we see things in the growth of the relationship. We're like, oh wow, look, there's a lot more email activity here. Or oh, more of their people are coming to our events. Or oh, their matters actually have a lot more hours attached to them now. What is going on here? Oh, we actually did a feedback interview with them 6 months ago. So it's like looking and seeing things that look a little different and then asking yourself these questions. I mean, in a perfect world, you have it all in a database and it's served up to you on a dashboard every single day. Um, but we haven't taken great care of our data for a really long time. We've just gotten really interested in it in the last 5, 10 years. So we have some work to do in order to get to that, I'll date myself, Jetsons kind of interaction with our data that, the big four has, that we do see in the Amazons of the world, and the like, comparing yourselves to like retail is crazy. Retail has been obsessed with data and the consumer since the 80s. So they have so much more information that is already structured, easily maintainable, and we're catching up. So give yourself grace and work with what you can control and what data you have access to in your organization. And by being able to tell meaningful stories and bring people along with you on the journey, you'll get access to more information versus be like, well, if I don't have this piece of information, or if I don't have this tool, I just can't do it. We can all do it, like we can create a story with, Excel and Microsoft Word. Excel's great for charts, but I would say like get away from the chart, tell the story. Use ChatGPT, use Canva. I mean, if you can create an action figure of yourself in chat, you can give it a couple points and be like, help me illustrate this. Help me tell a better story with these data points.
That's really
Of
great
course, within
advice.
your firm, of course, within your firm rules for AI, and don't use any firm sensitive information, and all appropriate disclaimers from your general counsel's office.
Fair enough. Well, I like your allusion to the retail side of things as well. So when you're talking about these using data to tell stories, what about when you think about actually building those deeper client relationships? And where do you see data continuing to expand or play a role in not only winning new work, but also strengthening that relationship long term?
I think really showing that you're listening to the client and what's important to them. Every firm has their own strategy in terms of how they want to grow their clients, how they want to defend their clients. Um, and the client has a strategy on how they want to manage their legal spend. Do they want to reduce their legal spend? Do they want to keep it the same? Do they want more of a partner in the relationship? Do they want insights from you, or do they want you to be their bet the company, you are my breaking case of glass relationship? And understanding that and figuring out what is the right data to facilitate those goals. If someone is a break the glass in case of emergency relationship, you want to make sure that you're just reminding them that you're on top of things, that you're periodically checking in with them, that you're staying on top of mind. So that's a different data strategy and a different relationship. You're going to want to have different prompts, different triggers, and also track different interactions versus if it's a relationship where you're like, we need to grow the share of market or the share of this client's wallet. So how many matters do we have? How many hours? What is our realization? How many pitches have we had? How many meetings have we had? How many touches? Um, so it depends on the strategy that we're applying to the clients. And that's why it's so important that back to that point of, this data can't operate in these silos. It has to be a collaborative relationship because it's not just when the lawyer reaches out that counts as a touch. It's when does the client talk to billing? When does the client come into the office? All of these things come together as a part of your client's experience with us. And our strategy with them needs to be in lockstep with it, as well as data that we want to collect. If you're, let's say you're a firm that specializes in family office and you have super high net worth people, and there is someone who really loves Coke Zero, but you all don't carry Coke Zero. That your client's beverage preference is probably a data point that's really important because they want to feel known and they want to be seen and you want to remember these things. Whereas, I don't think the general counsel of the private equity company that you're working with really cares if you know his soda or not. But depending on the client, depending on your firm, depending on your strategy, that might be a really important piece of information to have. So again, it goes back to tying it all together and not letting it live in just a silo of, oh, that's a catering issue or that's an operations issue. Like, no, that's a relationship piece of information that folks should know. Or like, what if it's a family office that's super, super invested in Pepsi? Do you want to take them to the Coca-Cola factory as a special client event? I don't know, but maybe you want to know that.
Yeah, those are all really interesting and great insights to get us thinking about the way we're tracking in data internally and how we're capturing that level of detail so that we can actually make a competitive advantage with it.
Yeah.
Um, and that kind of brings me to another question I wanted to ask you about today is, do you have any real world examples that you can share about a time where data helped you or your firm have a competitive advantage, whether in a pitch or client conversation or maybe a broader strategic move?
Um, you know, with our deployment of experience management at the firm, we're really fortunate. We were one of the first firms to really invest in this space. So today, we have over 250,000 matters, over 40,000 clients in there, and we average over 1,000 users a month contributing information. So it's a pretty robust platform that allows us to look at things differently and answer questions differently. Sometimes, there will be situations in which people ask us questions of, I need to know a certain characteristic about this group of matters. And when you look at it at first glance, you're like, oh, Actually, I can't see anything. They're like, actually, let me look at the timekeepers. So then looking at the timekeepers, I was able to work with that leader who was requesting it and create a really interesting, compelling story in about 60 minutes, for them to be able to go into a high level meeting about this tranche of work at the firm, by just thinking about it differently. Had I just looked at the matters, I'd have been like, womp womp, don't have a great story to tell you here. But just being like, hold on, let's just pivot it just one different angle and see if there's a different story present. And then I was like, oh, this is actually a really interesting story over here. What do you think about this? They're like, oh, that's great. And we were able to tee them up for a successful conversation and presentation, in the same time it takes you to make a healthy family dinner.
I love it. Well, obviously that's an ideal scenario, but I think we've all had other situations happen. Have you ever had times where data's told a story that's kind of challenged the status quo, and how did you navigate that internally?
Ooh. um yeah. Data, I refer to it a lot about. It's often, particularly when you start measuring things, um, you're probably not going to like what you see. It's kind of like the first time you're like, oh, I need to lose some weight. And you get on the scale and you're like, whoa. That is generally my first reaction when I want to start tracking something. I'm like, oh, that is not what I was expecting. And it's not great having to go share those numbers. People are like, I wanted to hear a better story. You're like, I don't have a better story for you. But I do have a plan on how we're going to improve that and how this plan ties back to what our firm priorities are. If our priority is to grow revenue, if our priority is to increase, profits per partner, if our priorities are to, grow in a certain market, here's how we're going to take this less than glorious data story that we have right now, and here are the strategies that we're going to put in place to improve this story. And here are the checkpoints that we're going to check in along the way to see if our progress is working. I mean, it's just like any other time that you want to change a behavior or change something about ourselves. Like, I mean, I don't think any of us go to the gym because we're like, I feel so healthy and great. It's like, no, I want to continue to stay healthy and great. We don't take our car in for an oil change because it's like, oh, I feel like being like taking the car to the dealership and spending a stupid amount of money. It's like, no, I want my car to keep on running and I want it to run better. And it's the same thing with data. Um, Oftentimes when we start, the story isn't great, but we need to keep track of it. Um, and also on the flip side of that, just because you have a great story doesn't mean you should stop paying attention to it. We all have so many things competing for our time and our attention every day. It's really easy for people's behavior to change, their incentives to change. So we need to look for behavior changes in our data, because it's a lot easier to catch something on the downswing and push it back up and get back to the behavior you want versus it hits rock bottom and you've got to totally restart, because then you've got a lot more emotional baggage, because then it's like, oh, did we fail versus like, oh, we've plateaued, we've hit a little spot, let's re-engage and pick back up. And so you can never rest on your laurels. The days of set it and forget it, when it comes to data and technology, is gone. You need to care for it, every day, keep an eye on it, have alerts set up if things fall outside of the thresholds that you've said that this range is tolerable. And if it's starting to trend above this range, I want to know why. Like, tell me what's going on. And if it's falling below this range, like, I want to know before it gets to zero so we can, put interventions in place to help it bounce back up.
That's a really great observation. And I think that's an important point to make, is having those foundational things in place within the firm, to allow you the opportunity to analyze and continue to check back at that level. And I think also Sidley is a great example of a firm that's creating this new department that's more broadly focused on some of the metrics and the insights that can be gleaned from things like that. That a lot of that seems like it's more of a cultural related thing. What do you think helps foster a culture where data is embraced? Obviously, culture is kind of a scary word internally at law firms. It's hard to change culture. So how do you create that culture where it's embraced and not feared, especially when lawyers as individuals may not be metrics driven people?
Yeah, I think we've been in a really good space. We started on this journey about 10, 12 years ago, the journey of growth, the journey of measurement. And it hasn't been, a big drastic shift overnight. It's been a series of incremental changes. And I smile a lot when I'm thinking about this because it kind of ties back to our Built to Lead program or our Built to Win program that we've gone to the market with. It's a training program that we do for associates at different stages in their career. We provide them with real world training. We send them to, a program at an MBA school, like a mini MBA program, to really help them learn. And I think that culture change and focusing on business development and changing behaviors that we've been doing for so long has made the entrance into the conversation of measurement and data kind of a natural progression. Um, if anything, I think I have to talk people back from wanting too much information. It's like, well, I want more. And it's like, more information is not going to magically give you an answer. It's going to give you a direction. It's going to help facilitate your decision, but it's like the numbers aren't going to give you a yes or no. Like you still need a human to make the decision. Um, and so that's actually more of the problem than like people being like, I don't want to see any numbers. I just want to make a decision. Um, and that's been a really great culture change that's happened slowly. It wasn't a over the night shift. It's something that, has been a consistent message from managing partner to managing partner as they've changed over the years. And something that's important for every department. Every department's very interested in, being able to measure things, to quantify things, and also get the qualitative part of the story. Because we are in a relationship business, legal is all about relationships, and we can put all the math to it we want, but where the qualitative stories around it is really what also helps push the needle in these situations.
That's a great point. And I like what you're saying about keeping um, an eye on the data in particular and what's being requested. When you're talking, especially about interfacing with marketing teams and business development teams, how do you keep teams focused on the right data and not maybe what's easiest to measure or what this broad grouping of data that we could be measuring that's there at our disposal? How do you focus in on what the right data actually is?
So I had a really great manager early on in my career who really taught me to talk about, rather than what do people want, what are you trying to answer and what does success look like? And then we work backwards from there. So instead of people telling me that, like, I want to know how many clients we have in an industry, what problem are we trying to solve? What does the successful solving of this problem look like? And then working backwards from there to help focus things. Because it's like, if you tell me I want to know all of our clients in this industry, I'm like, well, what are we doing with it? Is it for an in-person event? Is it for a mailing list? Is it for a pitch? If it's for a pitch, is it for a particular type of work? So you ask all these questions versus like, what does success look like in the end? It's like, oh, I'm putting together an in-person event in Houston. It's like, okay, so we want to prioritize, companies in Houston, in the energy sector, but here are some other big markets in Houston. Are you interested in those industries as well? Um, so it's like, what's the vibe of the event? Is it an office milestone celebration party, or is it an energy centric cocktail party? So talking to people like, what does success look like in the end, and then working backwards from there versus people saying, I want X. I try to coach my team. It's about coming from a place of service and a place of curiosity, and not being afraid to just ask. I mean, the worst that people say is, no, give me what I want. And it's like, I'll give you what you want, but you're probably going to be frustrated in the end, but okay. And just asking to try to seek to understand so we can create a more meaningful work product. Because like with data, all answers are correct. It's the context that goes around the question that determines which answer is the one that's most relevant to you in that situation.
That's a really insightful comment just to think about. All data is correct. Just how you frame it changes the entire picture.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
I mean, think about in the context of your company. Like, if I asked you, how many clients do you have? How many client does that mean? How many clients have you ever had? How many clients do you have that are active? How many clients that have you served in a certain time period? How many clients have you, like there's just so many different ways that you could look at it when someone says, how many clients do you have?
Absolutely. Well, I want to shift gears a little bit here and make sure that we have some time to talk about looking ahead. And I'm curious, in your role, what trends or innovations are you seeing coming down the pipe that you're most excited about when it comes to data and its correlation to our legal business strategy?
I think I'm most excited about the fact that people are finally excited about it. And I know that sounds like a silly answer. But I feel like initially when the Gen AI bug came to legal, and hit, it was all about, how do we make the lawyers work smarter? How do we make this, this work product and all these things? But no one was talking about the business of law, which I
Mhm.
think is way more ripe and way has a lot less risk in terms of experimentation. But also, like, hi, you need to have quality data in order to have quality AI models. And now I'm seeing a big shift in the market of like more people talking about products that help facilitate business, products that are helping facilitate pitches. I'm hearing less that like this is going to generate your perfect proposal. It's like, no, this is going to help you get to a first draft faster, which I think is a really big difference. um, as a former business developer, is it ready to go to the lawyer? Or is it like the draft that I got from the coordinator or the draft that I put together as a coordinator that needs refinement? Um, and you're seeing this investment in it, and you're also seeing a lot of investment in the structuring of third party data that is really cool. And you're seeing more marrying of external data sets like PitchBook, like CapIQ, um, like litigation data with your internal data sets. And to me, that's where the magic really happens, and you really start to be able to really develop some interesting insights that I think are competitive advantage and truly unique to your organization when you can start pairing those things together. And the data market within the legal community has really improved a lot. There's more moving to, you know, consistent, not consistent, easier ways to identify information, unique identifiers for concepts. Um, and it's just really kind of helping us get ready to make that next leap, which I feel like we're on the precipice of.
That is an exciting point to be. Um, in the vein of kind of marrying those external and internal data sets, and also in the construct of your position, heading this or helping to lead this new department within Sidley, as well as your incoming role as president-elect of the LMA International Board, what kind of new technology positions or roles are you seeing being carved out internally within firms to accomplish some of that, whether it be kind of those marrying of the data sets or in the marketing and BD department specifically? What are you seeing
I'm
there?
I'm seeing a lot more roles that are kind of sitting in between marketing and KM, or marketing and IT, or ideally all three of them. Um, because people are starting to realize that we're all using the same information. We just need to think about the use cases differently. The way that I, as a marketer, may want to use entity structure is different than, or an entity structure is different than what how conflicts would want to use it, and it's different than how knowledge management wants to use it. But we all want to use it, so it's a good piece. But we need to understand how each other want to use things. So I think that that is an area that we're going to see bubbling, and you're going to see it in like the Martech operations kind of space there. I think the skills that are really powerful here are some of the same skills that make an amazing marketer. Intellectual curiosity, comfort in the gray space, a spirit of service. I think part of the reason that I'm good at what I do and I'm generally happy about what I do is because I get to help people. And that's really what I want to do when I come into work every day. I want to help solve a problem. And that's what I enjoy. And you know, that's not everyone's cup of tea. But if that's your cup of tea, this is definitely a space to gravitate towards. I also think, a deep understanding of change management and organizational development and kind of understanding like adult learning and how you help people learn new things without um, making it threatening or kind of like super disruptive. So digging into those skills too, I think are really powerful things to help people who are interested in this space because I think it's just going to keep on growing. Um, because like yes, we can buy technology and we can create AI, we can create data, but you still need people who understand the business, who can put together the use cases, who can help coordinate with the technologist, who can then do the training, who can take the feedback, who can track the metrics, who can tell the stories. So yes, AI is doing a lot of the workflow items, but there's still a lot of humans in the mix for the advocacy and the development of these products.
I think that's a great point to close on is just focusing on the opportunities that AI and technology are going to bring to all of us in our roles and help us do them better and more efficiently, but also kind of expand the value that we're adding to the firms.
Absolutely. Like, full disclosure, I'm a communications major by training. My master's is in marketing science, i.e., like research. um, but I like to organize things and I like to help people and I'm curious. And I think that this is an area that is just going to keep on growing. And marketers, I think, are naturally positioned for this. Being a marketer in a law firm, you get to see the full life cycle of a matter. You get to see the full life cycle of a client, the challenges that our lawyers have, the challenges that happen on the staff side when you're trying to get a pricing agreement through, or a lateral comes through and they're still trying to clear conflicts, but they're trying to also do their work. You see so much that gives you such an amazing perspective to come deeper into the side of business and say, like, hold on, yes, this group wants this piece of data, but you know that this group would use it over here at this process. Like we need to talk to them more to dig in deeper, but like these pieces are not unique just to this one group and we need to talk to all of these stakeholders so we can create something that satisfies everyone's need and is a meaningful solution so we don't have to re-solution every 6 months.
Fantastic. Well, Rachel, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to share your insights and experience with us today. I think it was incredibly valuable to everyone on the call. And to everyone else, thank you for joining us and being part of this first Tech Tuesday. We hope you're walking away with some fresh ideas and some practical takeaways and maybe even a little inspiration on how you can dig deeper into how your team can use data more strategically. If you enjoyed today's session, please keep an eye out for the details. In our next Tuesday, we'll have another one, and we'll be continuing these quick kind of casual chats with incredible guests and topics that matter to legal marketing and business development professionals. So thank you again for spending part of your day with us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me. Y'all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.